I found a photograph in a dead man's pocket, what I saw in that picture. I've never told anyone, not my wife, not my children, not the chaplain who asked me to confess before I die. But I'm telling you today, right now. My name is Harold Crane. I was 19 years old when they sent me to Okinawa, Sugarloaf Hill, a place that doesn't exist on any map you'd want to look at. I'm going to show you what the Japanese military did, what they really did, not the version in the history books, the version that lives in my head at 3 a.m. when I can't sleep. And I'm going to tell you what I did too, because you can't understand one without the other. So sit down, turn off your phone, and listen to an old man who doesn't have much time left. This is the truth, all of it, and it's ugly. You want to know what fear really is? Fear is standing on solid ground and knowing the enemy is underneath you, not in front, not behind, under your feet, like the ground itself wants to kill you. Sugarloaf Hill wasn't a hill, it was a honeycomb. The Japanese had spent months, maybe years, digging tunnels through the coral, miles of them, connecting caves, bunkers, artillery positions. You couldn't see it from above. You'd just see a normal hill, some rocks, some brush, but they were down there, hundreds of them, waiting. We'd take a position in the morning, dig in, think we were safe, and then the ground would open up, a hole you never saw before, and a grenade would come flying out at an angle that made no sense. How do you throw a grenade upward from underground and have it land behind you? They figured it out. They had months to figure it out. We lost. God, I don't even know how many men that first week. Good men, boys, really, 18, 19 years old. They'd be standing right next to you, and then they weren't, just gone. You couldn't fight back. That was the worst part. You'd fire into the hole, but the tunnel curved. Your bullets just hit coral. They'd wait, patient, so damn patient. And then another grenade. We tried everything. Rifle, fire, throwing our own grenades. Nothing worked. The tunnels just swallowed it all. That's when the tanks came. You ever seen what a flamethrower does to a cave entrance? The fire doesn't just burn, it sucks the oxygen out. Everything inside suffocates, or burns, or both. We'd seal the entrances with napalm, and then the 50 cals would chew up anyone trying to escape through another exit. I watched men burn alive, Japanese soldiers, running out of those caves, their uniforms on fire, their skin. I can still hear it. That sound. You don't forget that sound. And you know what I felt? Nothing. I watched a man burn alive, and I thought about what I was going to eat for dinner. That's what they turned me into. That's what I'm about to show you. We pushed toward Naha, the capital, or what was left of it. Every building was rubble. Every street was a trap. You couldn't walk 10 feet without checking corners, checking windows, checking the ground for mines. It was exhausting, the kind of tired that goes into your bones. That's when Gunny pulled me aside. Crane, we got a prisoner. Take him to the rear. Intelligence wants him. I looked at the Japanese soldier. He was young, younger than me, maybe, skinny, scared. His uniform was torn, covered in dirt. He had his hands up, and he was shaking. How far to the rear, Gunny? About 400 yards, maybe 400 yards, through territory we hadn't fully cleared, alone. You got 1 minute, go. 1 minute, that's what he said. 1 minute to walk 400 yards through enemy territory with a prisoner who might have friends hiding in every pile of rubble. 1 minute. I grabbed the prisoner by the arm and started moving. You have to understand something. Being alone out there, that was death. We moved in squads for a reason. One man alone was a target, an easy target. And I was now one man, alone, with a prisoner who could scream, who could signal, who could do anything. We made it maybe 100 yards before he stopped. He reached into his jacket. I had my rifle on him before he finished the motion. Don't you do it. He pulled out a photograph, small, worn at the edges. He held it to his chest like it was precious, like it was all he had left in the world. I looked at my watch. 30 seconds gone. Give it to me. He shook his head. Give it to me, or I will shoot you right here. He knew enough English to understand that. Or maybe he just understood the look in my eyes. I wasn't bluffing. I couldn't afford to bluff. He handed me the photograph, and what I saw, what I saw in that picture, changed something inside me, something that never changed back. It was a photograph of the Great Wall of China. Beautiful, right? Historic, the kind of thing you'd see in a magazine. Except there were soldiers in the photograph, Japanese soldiers, standing in a line, smiling, and in front of them, were cages, metal cages hanging from poles. Inside the cages were heads, human heads, Chinese civilians, men, women. I think one of them was a child. I couldn't tell. The photograph was old, but the heads were real, and the soldiers were smiling like they were posing for a family portrait. I looked at the prisoner. He was watching me, waiting to see what I would do. Where did you get this? He didn't answer. Did you do this? Were you there? Nothing. Just those eyes. Just that silence. I thought about my brother back home. I thought about my mother. I thought about the boys in my squad who wouldn't see their families again. And I thought about those heads in those cages. You know what they used to say? The Japanese officers, they'd test their swords on prisoners. A good sword, a sharp sword, it could take a head off in one stroke, one clean cut. They called it a mark of skill. If it took 2 strokes, the blade was dull, or the soldier was weak. They practiced. On living people, they practiced like it was a sport. I looked at my watch, 50 seconds. I looked at the prisoner, and I made a decision. You don't need to know what that decision was. You can guess. And whatever you're thinking right now, whatever judgment you're making about me, I've already made it myself. 1,000 times, every night for 80 years. But I'll tell you this, I walked back to my squad in under a minute, and I never spoke about that photograph again. Until now, people ask me how I did it, how I killed men and then ate my rations like nothing happened, how I stepped over bodies to get to my foxhole and slept like a baby. You want the honest answer? I don't know. One day I was a kid from Ohio who cried when his dog died. The next day I was putting a bayonet through a man's chest and checking my watch to see if I'd make it back to my squad in time. Something breaks inside you, or maybe it doesn't break. Maybe it just goes quiet, like a radio you turn off because you can't stand the noise anymore. I remember the exact moment it happened to me. 3rd week on the island. We found one of our guys, a corporal named Davis. He'd been captured the night before. They'd tied him to a tree. I won't tell you what they did to him. I can't. But I'll tell you this. He was still alive when we found him. Barely. He looked at me and he said, no, I'm not going to repeat what he said. Some things you take to the grave. But after that, after I saw what they did to Davis, I didn't feel anything anymore. I couldn't afford to. Feeling things would get me killed. Feeling things would make me hesitate. And hesitation in Okinawa meant you were the next one tied to a tree. So I turned it off. All of it. The fear, the guilt, the part of me that knew right from wrong. I became something else. Something that could do what needed to be done. And here's the part they don't tell you in the movies. It worked. That cold place inside me, it saved my life over and over. I'm alive because I stopped being human for a while, but you can't just turn it back on when the war ends. I've been trying for 80 years. Let me tell you about the dead. Not our dead, their dead. You couldn't trust a corpse in the Pacific. You hear that? You couldn't trust a corpse because half the time it wasn't dead. Japanese soldiers would lie among the bodies, covered in blood, eyes closed, not breathing or barely breathing, and in their hand, under their body, they'd have a grenade or a pistol, waiting, just waiting for you to walk past. We learned fast, too fast. You'd approach a body and you'd use your bayonet, you'd jab it, roll it over, make sure. If it flinched, you finished the job. If it didn't, you moved on. And sometimes, sometimes they were actually dead, and you felt like a monster for what you just did. But then sometimes they weren't. One night, and I remember this like it was yesterday, we were dug in on a ridge, four of us in a foxhole, taking turns sleeping. The Japanese were somewhere below us. We could hear them moving, talking in whispers. Around 2 in the morning, I heard something, a scraping sound, like fingernails on rock. I looked over the edge of the foxhole, and there he was, a Japanese soldier climbing up the cliff face, silent, slow, patient. He was maybe 10 feet away, pulling himself up with his bare hands. In the moonlight, I could see his face, calm, focused, like he was just doing his job. He had a knife in his teeth. I didn't think. I couldn't think. I grabbed my rifle, I fired, and he fell. I heard him hit the rocks below. I heard the sound his body made, and then silence. Nobody in my foxhole said anything. We just sat there for the rest of the night, eyes open, waiting for the next one. That's what they did to us. They made us afraid of the dark, afraid of sleep, afraid of our own shadows. 15 of them for every one of us. I stopped learning names after the first week because by the second week, those names were just dog tags I'd have to mail home. And the artillery. God, the artillery. Both sides, ours and theirs. It never stopped, day and night, the ground shaking, the air full of smoke and metal and other things. I saw things fall from the sky that weren't shells. Arms, legs, pieces of men, ours and theirs, all mixed together. You couldn't tell the difference. After an explosion, you just brush it off your shoulder and keep moving. You had to. There was nothing else to do. I remember one time a boot landed next to me, just a boot, with the foot still inside. I looked at it and I thought it might be Johnson's. He was standing there a second ago. Now he wasn't. I picked up the boot and threw it aside, and I kept walking. That's what war does. You stop flinching. The unimaginable becomes just another Tuesday, and then one day the war ends, and you're supposed to go back to being a regular person, go to church, kiss your wife, complain about the weather. But you're not regular anymore. You never will be. So you came here to learn about evil. And maybe you did. Maybe you heard enough stories about caves and corpses and photographs to satisfy whatever curiosity brought you here. But I want you to think about something. Those Japanese soldiers, the ones who did those terrible things, they had mothers, they had fathers. Some of them had wives and children waiting at home. They weren't born evil. Nobody is. They were turned into what they became by their leaders, by their training, by a system that drilled it into them until it was reflex, until mercy was weakness and dying for the emperor was the only glory worth having. And we were turned into what we became too, not the same way, not with the same cruelty, but we did things. I did things that no young man should ever have to do. That's what war is. It takes normal people and breaks them. It takes boys who played baseball and sang hymns in church and turns them into killers, and then it spits them back out and expects them to forget. I can't forget. I won't forget, and I don't want you to forget either. Not because I want you to hate the Japanese. The Japan that exists today is not the Japan that existed then. They rebuilt. They changed. They figured out how to stop being what the war made them. We all have that capacity. I want you to remember because wars are still happening right now. Somewhere in this world there's a young man in a foxhole just like I was, scared, tired, watching his friends die, and he's being turned into something that will haunt him for the rest of his life. If my story can stop one war, prevent one young man from going through what I went through, then maybe all this wasn't for nothing. Maybe the boys who died on Sugarloaf Hill didn't die for nothing. I think about them every night, every single night. Their faces are clearer to me now than my own children's faces. Isn't that something? 80 years, and I remember the dead better than I remember the living. So here's what I want you to do. Don't look away from this. Don't let it become just another video you watched and forgot. Tell someone. Tell your children. Tell them what war really is. Not the glory, not the medals. The mud, the blood, the parts of yourself you have to kill just to survive. And if you know someone who served, if you know a veteran who won't talk about what happened, don't push them. Just let them know you're there. Let them know you care. Sometimes that's enough. Sometimes that's everything. I fought for this country. I killed for this country. I lost pieces of my soul that I will never get back. And all I ask in return is that you remember. God bless America, and God forgive us all.